Hello there, coming to you from the capital Jakarta, Indonesia, live here on TVR World. This is special report. For the next couple of hours, we are bringing you the coverage of the state visit of the President of South Africa, His Excellency Cyril Ramaphosa. Here in the capital, he is set to be meeting with the President of Indonesia, Prabowo Subianto. We'll bring you live pictures from where the action is happening at the Merdeka Presidential Palace here in Jakarta, and also an insightful conversation here in the studio. In the meantime, let's kick our program today. This is Special Reports with me, Rahmat Idris. And for a very special program this afternoon here in Jakarta, I am joined, I have the privilege to have two beautiful ladies joining for the programs. Allow me to introduce, right next to me is the Deputy Executive Director for Research of CSIS, Safia F. Muhibat. Mbak Fifi, always a pleasure to have you. Thank you very much.
Always happy to be here.
And right there at the end of our conversation table, joining me today is the spokesperson of Indonesia South-South Foundation, Rosabella Iza. Bella, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Representing our students who have concern for the South-South issue.
Global
this
South
is the perfect place to be this morning.
Yeah, it is a privilege for me too.
Thank you very much for joining me. In the meantime, we are waiting for live pictures coming in from the Merdeka Palace and more reports throughout the programs. And let's just kick it off by picking the brains of our guests today here in the studio. First, over to you, Mbak Fifi. This is another big day of head of states meeting together, because as we know, South Africa assumes the presidency of the G20 throughout the year in 2025, and in a little over a month, on the 23rd to the 24th of November 2025, Johannesburg is hosting the G20 summit. I guess this is also in line with the traditions that we've seen throughout the years with the G20 presidency, where in 2022 our then President Joko Widodo also paid visits to all of the leaders within the G20 memberships, which includes Russia at that point in time, where he head over to Moscow to personally invite President Vladimir Putin for the summit, which he didn't come, by the way. So we believe that this time it is also the courtesy of personal invitation on behalf of President Ramaphosa to President Prabowo Subianto.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think that in being a host to an important platform like G20 means a lot. And I do think, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the South African presidency of G20 would be the last of the presidencies of the developing countries.
Yeah,
because we
started a series.
It was a series. So
Indonesia, India,
Brazil, and then South Africa. So this is the last stop, as it is.
So they really put it together, don't they?
Exactly. So I do think it matters a lot. I think not only to South Africa, but for Indonesia as well, because we really want our involvement in G20 to actually mean something for the country. Yes.
And we also share, in terms of bilateral ties, we share a lot of goals and objectives in terms of, for lack of better words, making a better world and peace on earth, if we may say it. What do you think are some of the most key aspects of our relations with South Africa?
You know, Indonesia-South Africa relations, it is historically strong and very much deep-rooted, if you look at the history. Yeah. But I have to say it's somewhat underdeveloped. So you see, underdeveloped. So you see, there's a real gap between the rhetorical alignment. As you said, we have similar interests, similar goals, similar platforms that we are involved in. But we are still very much lacking in terms of the depth of our ties, especially in terms of economic ties. Yes, we do have good trade relations, but if you compare that with our trade relations or economic relations with our traditional partners in Asia, for example, then it's very much, it's a huge difference. Because whether you like it or not, I mean, distance is a problem.
It's geographically challenging for us to be
so even though there's, you know, rhetorically, there is strong political will from both sides, there are challenges that are particular for this kind of relationships where geographically you are far away.
Right. So before I head over on to my question to you about our relationship and some of the major concerns when it comes to South-South issues, Bella, introduce us, please, to what the foundation, your foundation, is all about. I mean, a lot of us here for the first time, that there is such thing of Indonesia South-South Foundations.
Yeah.
What do you work, you and your colleagues work on the most?
So, like I said, most of member of Indonesia South-South Foundation is student from different universities in Indonesia. From Universitas Indonesia, for UGM maybe, and for UIN Syarif Hidayatullah Jakarta. And we gather in one forum that we talk about the issues about global South issues like agricultural, and then technology transition, and etc. It's basically like, you know, it is basically a place to talk about global South issues, especially in Indonesia, because it is based in Indonesia, in Jakarta especially.
So it's sort of like a consortium of students in you who have concerns, who have ideals about the South-South issues and relations.
True.
What are the most important things that put you guys together, where you find out that you share this semblance of similarities, similar interests towards the South-South issues, that made you guys come together to discuss it?
Okay, so the basic concern that gather us together is because especially we live in Indonesia, because all the member right now is still Indonesian people, all of it. So we live in Indonesia and we're concerned about.
Are you at some point inviting foreigners or international students to join in?
Maybe in the future, hopefully.
When it's become bigger.
Hopefully it's become bigger. But right now it's most of the member is Indonesian people, so we're concerned about the issues in Indonesia, like disastrous CBDRR.
I see. Disaster risk reduction program.
And preparedness,
I covered a lot of that in Brisbane and in Manila. So that's a very important issue for us to tackle. And a lot of similarities global South countries are facing.
Because it's a tropical country, right? So the the disaster is something that we cannot avoid, or we cannot, we have to prepare for it.
Right. All right. So, Bella, just to echo what I asked Fifi earlier, was that what sort of challenges are we facing now in terms of coming together as a part of the global South countries, issues that we need to tackle together before we come closer to Indonesia and South Africa? In the global South alone, so what are the most and the major concerns there?
So maybe the major concerns is our power globally is still like maybe middle power country. So
we're still being undermined. You're saying.
Okay. So in the global forum, we might have the struggle to like make our voice together, like stay in one voice. So it is important for developing countries to come together and then gathered to in global forum to be in one voice. So
So getting our voices heard, that is important right now for the countries within the global South. And now let's talk about the bilateral relationships, because this is a momentum for the two heads of nations to come together. Over to you, Mbak Fifi. Indonesia and South Africa relations, we date back. Our relations is dating back to 250 years ago, due to from the facts that I have on my fact sheets, to the mid-1600s, when the first people of Indonesian descent arrived at the Cape. We believe it's the Cape Town, although formal diplomatic relations were established only on August the 12th, 1994. It's relatively young, isn't it? I mean, compared to all the other ties that we've had with countries around the globe. In your opinions right now, where are we at this point in time in terms of having bilateral ties with South Africa?
I have to say it's probably, I mean, you can you can't really compare it with our ties with countries in different regions, right? But just to compare it with other countries in Africa, I would say it's
a lot of them are over 70 years.
Exactly.
75,
exactly.
If not, so.
It's one of the stronger ones. You know, it's commonly believed that South Africa can be sort of like a gateway into Africa. On the one hand, it's true, but on the other hand, you know, you really have to put more effort into building this this relationship with the country.
What about you, Bella? What sort of things that have you observed in the past decades when it comes to the relations between Indonesia and South Africa?
So when we talk about the relation between Indonesia and South Africa, I think it's not just diplomatic. It is a true historical, maybe cultural, and even spiritual.
So it is deep-rooted, as was said by
true.
Fifi earlier,
Yeah. Because we have like a deep historical bonds between the two nations. Like when in the colonial Dutch era, our Islamic scholars like sent like
to South Africa.
Yeah, to South Africa, that create a community, Islamic community there. So until today, even one of the people in Indonesia is very famous there, Sheikh Yusuf of Sheikh Yusuf of Makassar as the father of Muslim in South Africa. So yeah, that's why I say that the relation is not just diplomatic,
economic or diplomacy, but also religious and culture, which is, for lack of a better word, deep-rooted there. But the thing is, South Africa is not the largest trade partner to Indonesia in Africa when we talk about the entirety of the continent. But the country represents a potential market to diversify Indonesia's exports. So from your analysis, how large is the South African market compared to other African countries, especially when it comes to being a part of some of the biggest economies out there within the G20 that we talked about earlier?
Yeah. So when we talk about the large, how large the market, we're not talking about the number, just the number, but we're also talking about the
distance, as we said, because that's also to get our ships going there and all our cargoes going to South Africa. I can only imagine. I've flown one to the north, and it took me 33 hours. Go ahead.
Yeah, but it's the potential, I think. Like when we talk about the continent and African continent, I think there's 3 key points of African continent. In the north is Egypt, and in the west will be Nigeria.
Right. There's a lot of Indonesian students in Egypt too.
So exactly.
Around 12,000, 13,000, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. That's it is the potential. And South Africa, like Ibu Fifi says, that it's the gateway to open the broader market in in Africa continent itself. So the large amount will be when we have the relation with South Africa, will be open the broader market in Africa continent itself.
I see. Right. Before we continue on with our conversation here in the studio, and while we wait for live pictures coming in from the palace when the state visit is happening, let's go on over to the first report of our program. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa is scheduled to meet President of Indonesia Prabowo Subianto during his one-day visit to Indonesia on Wednesday today. And later on in the afternoon, we'll bring you the live pictures as well from the palace. The two leaders will discuss bilateral relations during the meeting. And below are the highlights of our relations. Take a look.
Indonesia-South Africa relations go back more than 350 years, when the first people of Indonesian descent arrived in the Cape in the mid-1600s. Starting with the Bandung Conference in 1955, Indonesia became one of the fiercest critics of apartheid and supported the anti-apartheid struggle throughout. Efforts to rekindle the spirit of Bandung through enhancing cooperation between the countries of Asia and Africa were jointly initiated in 2002, and Indonesia and South Africa hosted the first Asian African Sub-Regional Organizations Conference, or ASROC 1, and the second ASROC 2, respectively, in Bandung, Indonesia in 2003 and in Durban, South Africa in 2004. Indonesia and South Africa established formal diplomatic relations on August 12, 1994. The South African Embassy in Jakarta was established in January 1995, and Indonesia opened its embassy in Pretoria in 1995. Both nations are members of numerous organizations such as the World Trade Organization, Non-Aligned Movement, Indian Ocean Rim Association, Cairns Group, CIVET's G20 major economies, and BRICS. The close relations between Indonesia and South Africa are marked by exchanges of state visits of the two countries' leaders. During a state visit by President Yudhoyono to South Africa in March 2008, a strategic partnership joint declaration was signed, elevating the long-standing relations between the two countries to a new level. At the invitation of President Joko Widodo, the then President Jacob Zuma conducted a state visit to Indonesia on March 8, 2017, to enhance bilateral political and economic relations between the two countries. President Jokowi then visited South Africa in August 2023 for the BRICS Summit, marking his first visit to Africa as president. Indonesia and South Africa have strong and growing trade relations, with bilateral trade totaling $2.41 billion in 2024. From January to August 2025, total trade between the two countries reached $1.42 billion, with Indonesian exports amounting to $690.60 million and imports totaling $732.10 million. In 2024, bilateral trade stood at $2.41 billion, up 7.2% from the previous year. Indonesia's key exports include palm oil, vehicles, and rubber, while its main imports from South Africa are ferroalloys, chromium ore, and raw aluminum. Both nations are actively working to deepen this partnership, which is supported by historical ties and mutual economic interests in areas like micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. Just on October the 20th, Indonesia's Minister of Trade Budi Santoso met with South Africa's Deputy Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition, Zuko Godimpi, on the sidelines of the G20 Trade and Investment Ministerial meeting in Gibera. The meeting focused on deepening economic and trade cooperation between the two nations, including the development of micro, small, and medium enterprises.
Well, there you have it, a few key highlights on the bilateral ties between the Republic of Indonesia and the Republic of South Africa. We have the President of the Republic here in the capital, Jakarta, set to be in a TED meeting with the President of Indonesia, Prabowo Subianto. And soon we'll be bringing you live pictures from the Merdeka Palace where the meeting, and there you have it, right there where the meeting will take place. And right now, as you see it there, all the final preparations are being made. We have Indonesia's welcoming troops, as always, standing in line. Cultural performances and all the nuances have been put together to welcome the President of South Africa to Merdeka Palace, right at the heart of the capital, Jakarta, Indonesia. But Fifi, this is always the tradition when it comes to properly welcoming head of states visiting Indonesia. And we've done this many, many times. So at this point in time, why do you think, I mean, this is a rare occasion having a head of states on behalf of the African continent here in the country. Why do you think out of all the countries, you mentioned that briefly, the gateway, South Africa, that this particular nation of the African continent holds a special part for Indonesia?
Well, of course. I mean, if you want to, if you're serious about engaging with Africa, and then we've talked about, opening new markets and so on, of course, South Africa is one of the countries that you have to engage because it has consistently been, either on the top 3 or sometimes top 5 in terms of GDP in Africa. Yeah. So it's not the biggest, as you said, of course, but it's always up there. And then they are, compared to the other African nations, they are more advanced in terms of their services sector and their manufacturing sector as well. So it is a very proper partner for us if we want to engage more with Africa. But of course, as I said earlier, the challenges are there. So logistics is one, of course, as we mentioned. Another probably competition, because more and more countries are wanting to engage with African countries. So we're having competitions from even other Asian countries. China's been in Africa for a lot longer, a lot more intensively than we have.
And the president is visiting Malaysia and Vietnam, the rising lions here in the region as well.
Yes, yeah. So there are competition in that sense. So it's up to us, the sort of strategy we use in terms of our engagement with South Africa.
Right. Anything to add to this? The key interest of Indonesia is establishing and fostering relations with South Africa, Bella.
So I think it's also a trade and maybe investment. So some companies, Indonesian companies already established there, like Indomie and Pertamina in last year.
We have Indomie in South Africa.
And it's become popular in South Africa itself. And also Pertamina.
I think I read reports about it, that there's a gaining fan base for Indonesia's culinary and cuisines, especially Indomie in South Africa.
I think it's investment. So we have to strengthen the investment in the future with South Africa. So it's got to be a lot of potential in trade and investment, and also maybe in agriculture.
Right.
Yeah, because the similarities between two nations is Indonesia and South Africa is a tropical country that produce a lot of agricultural commodities. So and we together face the challenge of unilateralism.
Yeah, as opposed to multilateralism. That's a tricky word there. It's a mouthful.
In the European Union Deforestation-Free Regulation that affect two nations. So we have to come together to face that and looking for the solution to developing countries, especially.
Right.
Yeah.
It's interesting you touch on the unilateralism, because if we look back in retrospect to our presidency back in 2022, Mbak Fifi, I guess we go back and forth with these issues, that multilateralism is always something that Indonesia is putting on the table. Do you think that this is something that we share with South Africans' leadership as well?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if something is similar between Indonesia and South Africa, we're both still developing nations aiming for bigger stage. So our involvement in G20 and then in BRICS is we are both trying to play at the bigger, more important stages. So with that condition, of course, then multilateralism is probably the only way to go, because you take advantage of existing multilateral platforms, which can advance then your own national interest.
Yeah, you want to add something to this?
Yeah. Also in the global forum like G20 or in United Nations itself, it is important to keep the multilateralism itself within the developing countries, because we're going strong if we're together. We have to be
stronger together.
We're stronger together.
Collaborative efforts. But the thing is, there's also a rise to unilateralisms, especially from strong nations. The US, for example, we've seen a lot of unilateral moves. Do you think that this is one of the reasons for these countries in the global south to come together to tackle the incoming threats? But hold that thought, Mbak Fifi, I was just being informed that we are looking at some movements coming in from the Merdeka Palace, where we expect moments from now there in the background, we can see that the motorcade, or that is the regular traffic, yeah, but at some point in time, we are expecting the motorcade bringing over the entourage of the President of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, will be approaching the presidential palace, the Merdeka Palace here in Jakarta. Let's take a look at the visuals for a while.
Tegak, sentera! Gerak! Pimpinan, saya ambil alih. Istirahat di tempat.
All right, you are still watching our special program today, coming live from the capital Jakarta, Indonesia. Special reports on the state visit of the President of South Africa, His Excellency Cyril Ramaphosa. The pictures coming in from the vicinity of Merdeka Palace, where we are expecting the arrival of the President of South Africa. And there you have it, the visuals of the motorcade of the President himself approaching to the Palace of Jakarta. And moments from now, we are expecting for the President of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, to be meeting with the President of Indonesia, Prabowo Subianto. A formal welcoming ceremony will unfold, to be continued by the traditionally tete-a-tete meeting between the members of the entourage of each presidential team. We have received reports that the entourage from South Africa, and that is the team of the President of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, comprises of a number of delegates joining him in person today. And the President of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, has arrived this very morning in the capital Jakarta at 7:45 a.m. Welcomed in person by the Minister of Trade of the Republic of Indonesia, as well as the Ambassador of South Africa to Indonesia here in Jakarta, and the Ambassador of Indonesia to South Africa. So the formal welcoming has taken place this morning at Halim Perdana Kusuma Airport, Jakarta, alongside the military corps and the welcoming cannon ceremony as well. And then by 8:15 a.m. this morning, the presidential entourage of South Africa has arrived at the Kempinski Hotel Indonesia here in the capital Jakarta. And then a while back, 20 to 11 a.m. this morning, the entourage just left the hotel and on their way right now as we speak to Merdeka Palace, approaching the palace to be meeting with the President of Indonesia a few minutes from now. There's been quite a delay, 10-minute delay from the initial designated agenda of his arrival, but we expect that the welcoming ceremony at the palace will begin very, very soon. We have also received word that the entourage of Indonesia will be also accompanied, the President himself will be accompanied by another 10 ministers, members of the cabinet of President Prabowo Subianto. We are expecting alongside the President the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and also the Defense Minister, the Trade Minister, and also the head of Indonesia's investment agency, the head of the Cabinet Secretariat, and also the Ambassador of Indonesia to South Africa and the Director General of Asia Africa in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Indonesia, and 2 more to be confirmed very, very soon. And as always, the arrival of heads of states coming into the country, approaching the capital, is welcomed with such joy. And we've seen moments ago the rejoice from the invited local students have also been lined up to welcome the entourage of the president. Bafifi and also Bella, share with us your thoughts as you look at this festive welcoming, festive visuals coming in from around the palace.
Yeah.
Oh, Bella, you go first.
I think it looks so beautiful that we see that a lot of Indonesian students gather there to meet with the President of South Africa.
Waving both flags of both countries there, Indonesia and South Africa, and the horse cavalry. There's always a nice thing to see. I hope it's not so hot for them out there. And Fifi, what do you make of what we're looking at right now?
No, I mean it's always fascinating to see this, because then you imagine that our leaders would also get the similar treatment and reception when they arrive in another country. So it really shows this very high diplomatic respect from one country to another.
Right. And the vehicles, presidential car of South Africa with the car plate of South Africa bearing the flags of Indonesia and South Africa has made its way into the front yard of Merdeka Palace. Look at those smiles of those kids though. And the president hasn't even exited the car yet. They're just happy to be there. So such a joy moment we are looking at right now, the official welcoming of the state visit of South African President Cyril Ramaphosa to Jakarta, Indonesia. Fifi, this is a one-day visit, so short. He didn't even get to see other great parts of our country except for Jakarta. But looking at that, President Prabowo Subianto standing by and shaking hands of President Cyril Ramaphosa. Very warm greetings there. The last time they met was November last year. I don't know if they met during BRICS summit, but November last year we were there as well for the G20 summit in Rio de Janeiro. And I guess this is another reciprocal courtesy visit on behalf of the South African President Cyril Ramaphosa to Indonesia, because a little over a month from now, President Prabowo will be stepping foot in Johannesburg, South Africa, for the G20 summit. Right. While we are looking at the initial movements of the welcoming ceremony of the head of state today, Fifi, walk us through of some of the knowledge that we need to know. But hold that thought, we believe that the official welcoming ceremony will now begin. Let's join in the visuals from Merdeka Palace.
Lapor, upacara penyambutan siap dimulai. Selanjutnya pasukan siap diperiksa. Upacara penyambutan telah dilaksanakan. Laporan selesai. Kembali ke tempat.
All right, you are looking at live visuals from the Merdeka Palace here in capital Jakarta, where right now the welcoming ceremony for the President of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, has just concluded, and now each of the head of states is doing the courtesy of introducing each member of their entourage. And as we've mentioned earlier, there are 10 of each president's member of entourage, 10 from Indonesia and also 10 from South Africa that have been introduced alongside each president. On behalf of Indonesia alone, we've had earlier there, you've seen the visuals of the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister of Defense, and also Trade, Heads of Investment, and also the Secretary of the Cabinet. And right now, the official a photo op of the two heads of states are being taken right there at the central lobby of the Merdeka Palace, there in the background, the flags representing each nation. So warm handshakes there between President Prabowo Subianto and Cyril Ramaphosa, who is about to sign the guest book before entering the final room for a tete-a-tete, or rather head-to-head meeting between the two presidents. Fifi, so South Africa is the middle power in the African continent. When we look at our foreign policy, how important is South Africa in our diplomacy effort?
Well, of course. I mean, if you ask a question like that, of course the answer is it's always important.
Always important.
Always
yeah.
important.
Amanda, regardless of the level of power they have within their own consortiums of countries, for example.
Exactly, and we have seen this throughout both our histories, how we have worked together with South Africa on different platforms, and it really shows that there is a high interest for both countries to elevate their cooperation, mostly in trade, in economy, but also I think in a lot of other things, because now we are involved in different platforms.
Right.
Yeah.
And now the two presidents are seated to start the initial conversations and exchanges before both entourage and each respective members enter the tete-a-tete meeting. This is usually the informal greeting sessions where we expect usually the initial conversations will be open for us to listen into before they close the doors usually. And Bella, when you guys have been having your conversations within the foundations of South-South with your colleagues, what are some of the most crucial challenges that you and your colleagues have identified when it comes to establishing our ties with our African counterparts?
Yeah, maybe it is in line with what Ibu Fifi says about the large distance between Indonesia and South Africa. So when we talk about the potential, economic potential, with my colleague, talk about that. It's gonna be, it's quite difficult, I think, because we have to be effective on the cost of shipping and extra.
Exactly.
So yeah, maybe that's the biggest challenge.
Yeah, because it's interesting the fact that some of our commodities and products are quite popular there. Indomie, you mentioned, and Mafifi also added earlier that our batik, which was brought over by the Dutch colony probably hundreds of years ago, has also such a significant place in South Africa. But for our companies to further establish and assert their influence, bigger power in South Africa, what are the obstacles there? Because we need to attract investments coming in from South Africa, right?
Okay, so our specialty maybe right now when we talk about the data export to Africa is in the agricultural commodities.
Right.
So,
are we selling to South Africa or vice versa?
We export. So we're selling
export to South Africa.
Basically, we're selling the
palm oil we heard earlier.
Yeah. Basically, it's like basic needs or basic matters there. So it is important to maybe the solution. Maybe President Prabowo can implementing the hilirisasi there.
Right, the upstreaming or the downstreaming rather.
The downstreaming, the downstreaming there. So like, so we as Indonesian, we have to like take more innovation and etc. in the agriculture. Maybe like halal industry or something that because South Africa also have a big Muslim.
And this is also something that we have been exploring with other countries as well. The rising of halal tourism, halal industries around the globe, even though through some non-traditional destinations. We see that on the rise as well. Let me go over to you, Fifiat, because I distinctly remember when we were seated at the Westin in Bali at the end of 2022, when we were welcoming the arrival of President Cyril Ramaphosa for the G20 summit, which was hosted by Indonesian President, the then President Joko Widodo. So fast forward 2 years from now, how do you think that that particular moment from the summit that we've had here in Indonesia has carried over to all of the things that we are sharing within the membership of the G20 that is also held by the South African presidency? Up to now that the presidency is, of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa is here for the second time?
Sure, of course, a lot has happened since the end of 2022 until now. The geopolitical dynamics have also changed in very significantly. Change of leaders in some of the great nations of the world, like the U.S. So it really affects on how developing countries engage with each other. And I think it really brings back the notion that it's really high time for countries like Indonesia and South Africa to actually improve their relations. So speaking of the bilateral relations, it's actually very interesting. We've been talking about trade relations with them and how it is still very much underdeveloped. Since the mid-2000s, the two countries have established the JTC, the Joint Trade Commission, actually.
Okay.
So
what does it entail?
So it's a forum for dialogue, basically, to improve trade relations between the two countries, which shows that, since the past 2 decades, there are efforts to actually improve the condition. But to be honest, the results have been quite patchy. Yes, there are initiatives to renew some of the mechanisms. We talked about the MSME, for example, some of the sectors that Bella was explaining earlier. But the results have been patchy. And even earlier this year, we saw pictures about some of the recent meetings between our trade ministers, between Indonesia and South Africa, trying to actually improve trade relations. But I do think that the challenges are quite huge. The political will, again, is there. It's just, I think, a matter of how we use this political will to actually improve conditions.
Right. Yeah. Which brings into a clearer vision that today is a highly important day for the two countries, because we are waiting for the tete-a-tete meeting to start and, more importantly, to finish, which we are not expecting to happen very, very soon in the program. But at the end of the tete-a-tete meeting, we are expecting some concrete agreements and results and MOUs and all the details that have been ironed out between the two countries that will address some of the challenges that you mentioned earlier. Bella, I'd like to also get your opinion on the fact that we are still reeling from the 19% tariff imposed to Indonesia from the US, and a lot of other countries are experiencing the same fate as well. Do you think that one of the ways for us to pivot and to establish cooperation with other countries, South Africa is the outlet, one of the outlets for us to do this as well?
Yeah, when we talk about trade, South Africa is one of the continent that potentially good for diversify our market.
Yeah, that's always good. Diversification is always a good thing. Yeah,
because although we have the same commodity in agricultural commodity, but each country have their own specialty on some commodities. So yeah, I think it's important to increase our collaboration with South Africa, not only in economic, but also maybe when we see a lot of children there, maybe in the future it's gonna be in education.
Of culture and education.
Exactly.
Ways to understand each other, right?
Yeah, yeah, because we're in the same, I think in the same level of education. Like the Cape Town University is in the, middle ranking, same with Indonesia. So I think it is
need to go up together, you're saying.
Yeah, we go up together, and then we have to share technologies or something that can increase our power in global forum.
Right. And on that note, Bella, you also represent a significant portion of our students here, representing our campuses in the country, who are paying close attention to what's happening within the global south and all the important issues that lies within. Do you think that at some point, academically establishing university ties between the two countries is something that our government will need to pursue?
Absolutely. I think we have to begin the conversation about collaboration and education, because as you mentioned before, there's a lot of Indonesian students too in Egypt, but in South Africa, I think it's still quite rare. So I think in the future it needs
to be established.
It needs to be established, and then maybe it could strengthen, like in the future, strengthen our partnership, like in terms of trade and etc. Because education is like the foundation of the nation, I think. So it is important, of course.
So if ever down the line you are given the choice, Cape Town or Johannesburg to study? I'll send you the answer via WhatsApp, she said. Before I continue on with you and more conversations happening here in the studio and more pictures from the Merdeka Palace, let's bring in a report that has been put together by our team here for the program. Prior to becoming South Africa's president, Cyril Ramaphosa, has had a long and intensive history in student and trade union politics. He was widely known as the anti-apartheid activist and labor leader. He later became a businessman before making a political comeback in 2012. Now let's take a look at Ramaphosa's brief profile.
To Johannesburg. He matriculated at Mapupudi High School in Sibaya.
Cyril Ramaphosa was born in Soweto, Johannesburg on November 17, 1952. He is the second of the three children to Ertmuth and Samuel Ramaphosa. He was born during South Africa's racially discriminatory apartheid era. Ramaphosa registered to study law at the University of the North in 1972, now the University of Limpopo, where he became involved in student politics. He joined the South African Student Organization and the Black People's Convention. During his time in university, he organized rallies, which led to his detention in 1974 along with other student activists. He was detained for the second time in 1976 following the Soweto student uprising. After his release, Ramaphosa continued his studies. After several years of part-time studies and part-time work as a law clerk, he earned his Bachelor of Procurationist degree, or B.Proc, from the University of South Africa in 1981. He then joined the Council of Unions of South Africa as a legal advisor. Black nationalist Nelson Mandela became the country's first black president, while Ramaphosa became a member of parliament and was elected as chairperson of the Constitutional Assembly. On completion of the constitution drafting process, Ramaphosa left parliament to move into business, joining New Africa Investments Limited. In 2001, he established the Shanduka Group, a black-owned investment holding company. The investment firm grew to have holdings in multiple business sectors, such as mining, property, finance, and fast food franchises. In 2004, he established the Shanduka Foundation, focusing on education and small business development. The Shanduka Foundation was renamed the Cyril Ramaphosa Foundation in 2015. According to BBC report, his ventures were wildly lucrative. By 2015, Ramaphosa had become one of South Africa's wealthiest politicians, with a net worth of about $450 million. The unionist turned tycoon started his political comeback in 2012. Ramaphosa was elected ANC deputy president at the ANC's 53rd National Conference in Mangaung in December 2012. 2 years later, in May 2014, he was appointed deputy president of the Republic of South Africa, giving legitimacy to the scandal-hit presidency of Jacob Zuma. In December 2017, Ramaphosa was elected 13th ANC president at the 54th National Conference in Johannesburg. Under Ramaphosa leadership, South Africa has emphasized its credentials as a champion of the Global South, most notably in the way that it has led the condemnation of Israel over its war in Gaza. It is also a leading voice in the BRICS economic group. In May 2024's general election, President Cyril Ramaphosa has been re-elected by lawmakers for a second term, hours after his African National Congress and the Democratic Alliance agreed to form a coalition. The ANC lost its parliamentary majority in the 2024 election for the first time since it swept to power in 1994 at the end of apartheid.
Well, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa is visiting Indonesia as part of his three-nation Southeast Asia tour, which includes Vietnam and Malaysia. And here's the agenda of the African president's visit to Indonesia. Take a look.
President Ramaphosa's itinerary during his Southeast Asian tours includes state visits to Indonesia and Vietnam, followed by participation at the 47th ASEAN Summit in Malaysia as guest of the chairman of ASEAN. The visit forms part of South Africa's ongoing foreign policy drive to diversify export markets, deepen South-South cooperation, and expand strategic partnership across Asia, a region increasingly pivotal to global trade, innovation, and sustainable development. Announcing the visit at a media briefing on Monday, presidential spokesperson Vincent Magwenya said the trip underscores South Africa's commitment to broadening its international partnerships beyond traditional markets in Europe and North America. President Ramaphosa's participation in the ASEAN Summit follows South Africa's recognition as a sectoral dialogue partner of ASEAN in 2023, a milestone in advancing South-South cooperation and fostering inclusive, sustainable development through enhanced political, economic, and multilateral collaboration. During his visit to Indonesia on Wednesday, Ramaphosa is scheduled to meet with President Prabowo to discuss bilateral relations, focusing on cooperation within the G20 forum, where South Africa currently holds the presidency. The discussions will also address the upcoming G20 Leaders Summit planned for November the 22nd to the 23rd, 2025 in Johannesburg. South Africa values Indonesia's strategic position as a BRICS member and sees opportunities to align geopolitically. They are expected to discuss peaceful diplomacy concerning the Israel-Hamas conflict as part of the New York Declaration, with Indonesia being recognized as a contributor to peace efforts. The state visit will emphasize expanding trade, promoting investment and cooperation in technology, manufacturing, agriculture, renewable energy, and digital innovation. This visit underlines South Africa's efforts to diversify export markets and deepen South-South cooperation with Southeast Asia.
On this international community that we can spend.
Well, now let's go back to our conversation here in the studio with our two guests today. And I'm still joined by a very familiar face here for TVR World, the Deputy Executive Director for Research of CSIS, Safia F. Mohibat. And also I'm joined today by the spokespersons for the Indonesia South-South Foundation, Rosa Bella Iza. These are long hours for the three of us today, so thank you very much for sticking with me. Let me go over to you, Mafifi. I mean, that just recently concluded report, we see that it's not only that we perceive South Africa as an important gateway, as you say, towards the African continent and its entirety, but vice versa. From that particular speech of President Ramaphosa, he's also perceived Indonesia as a, he said, and I quote, strategic partner to South Africa. Why do you think that is?
Well, of course. I mean, we have the similar agenda, right? They want to expand markets. They want to sort of like get more investment. And I think quite similar to Indonesia, we are diversifying partnerships in order to reduce dependencies to our traditional partners.
Yeah.
So,
is it in our efforts for the de-dollarization, you're saying?
well, yeah. I mean, that's
pivoting there.
That's one part of it, and it's something that you do in BRICS. But I think more important than that, our engagement in BRICS, I think, are more sort of like implementable through platforms like the New Development Bank, for example. Those are the kinds of things that both Indonesia and South Africa can actually use to benefit something from our involvement in BRICS and to ensure that developing countries' agenda really make a difference in global engagement.
What does this New Development Bank exactly do, Fifi? Are we open to the possibility of attracting more FDIs coming in through the New Development Bank, or how does it work?
So it's a fairly new thing, right? It's something that is created within BRICS, and the idea is to create alternative financing for the needs of the member states of BRICS. So, for example, countries like Indonesia, we need a lot of financing in terms of our infrastructure. Right. And you know, it's one alternative, so it's not the only thing that we sort of like we're waiting upon for money from NDB, but it opens up alternative for the member countries of BRICS to actually band together some finances and then use it for the need of the member countries.
Right. Yeah. And Bella, this is only our first year as a permanent member within BRICS, which has been perceived as the Western countries, especially the US, was against BRICS, that Indonesia needs to be very careful in stepping in even further, while also balancing our membership within the G20. Yeah. How do you think that our membership thus far has been inspired by also what South Africa has been doing in the past through their own membership within the BRICS, and something to learn from?
Oh, okay. I think from Indonesia,
I mean, first years is always about exploring all of these possibilities of partnering with other members.
I think something to learn is that the collective bargaining power that BRICS have to, you know, the global forum, like Ibu Fifi says about the development bank and etc. It will be like new instrument that we can, you know, that has the potential that we can take the advantage of that in terms of currency problem in the trade relation with developing countries.
All right, well said then. So we're going to take another quick break before we continue on with our conversation. Hopefully more pictures coming in from the Merdeka Palace, but last thing we hear that probably the tete-a-tete behind closed door meeting has now started, meaning that it is closed for everyone. We can only expect that for it to conclude as soon as possible within the program, so we get a bit of knowledge what has been achieved between the two countries when it comes to the deliverables and the outcomes of the head of states meeting today. In the meantime, we'll take another quick break right here. The special report will return in just a few minutes. Stay with us. Thank you for staying with us for a very special edition of Special Reports here on TVR World, where for the last hours we've been covering the state visit of the President of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, who is, as we speak right now, in a closed-door tete-a-tete meeting with the President of Indonesia, Prabowo Subianto. Each entourage of the presidents comprises of 10 members of the cabinet, and we are expecting a diverse conversations and agreements to be made upon within the bilateral ties of the two countries, Indonesia and South Africa. And I'm still joined by two very esteemed guests joining me for the programs to talk it all the way through. Fifi, Bella, thank you very much for staying with me throughout the program. Let me go over to you now. While we are expecting the results of the closed meeting ongoing as we speak right now, Fifi, one interesting is that the itinerary of President Ramaphosa also includes one day here in Indonesia, but also includes another visit to Malaysia and Vietnam. And as we know, Malaysia has been chairing the ASEAN meetings towards the year as they've been assuming the chairmanship. What do you think we can expect from the presence of President Ramaphosa within the ASEAN summit and the significance of it all, observing from what's been happening over the year in Malaysia?
Yeah, so President Ramaphosa has been officially invited to observe, so as an observer to the 47th ASEAN Summit, which is coming up this weekend, in, starting on Sunday and then Monday and then Tuesday in Kuala Lumpur. So he is attending as an observer. From what I've heard, the Malaysians have confirmed that there will be 3 other leaders. So President Lula is also from Brazil is also coming, right. And then President Trump from the U.S. is also coming, and then most likely also Xi Jinping from China is also attending as observers to the ASEAN summit, which is quite interesting looking at this. And then we also need to look closer into the why these leaders are willing to observe the ASEAN summit. For US and China, it's quite more common because there will also be meetings of the East Asia Summit, and then which they are part of. But for Brazil and for South Africa, it's quite interesting. And it really shows that they are serious about engaging this region as part of the diversifying partnerships that we talked about earlier, and shows that how important Southeast Asia is to other parts of the world, including, southern part of Africa and then to Latin America as well.
Right. And the chairmanship of Malaysia this year is something to look forward to, because we look back to our own chairmanship a couple of years back, but the thorn remains within ASEAN. The challenges in Southeast Asia, the Myanmar conflicts is yet a far-fetched issue for us to come to resolution with. And now with the President of Prabowo Subianto taking office in its first year, how do you think the chairmanship of Malaysia this year has taken shape towards resolving some of the crucial issues within the region?
Yeah, it's been a very interesting year indeed. So we are supposed to expect some new developments with regards to Myanmar. PM Anwar has said something about, they're going to discuss about the plan for election in Myanmar. That's something that's part of the agenda to be talked about during the agenda in the summit. And of course, the Thai-Cambodian conflict is a big issue to discuss as well. From what we've heard, there's going to be some sort of peace agreement signing ceremony as well. I'm not sure whether that's going to come into fruition as well. So those are the kinds of things that really important in the agenda.
Right. Yeah. And the possibility of the presence, we don't know for certain yet, that President Donald Trump is going to be in attendance, President Xi Jinping is going to be in attendance, but they said that they're going to be meeting in Beijing later on in the year. But should that happen, they're going to be meeting much sooner than what's been planned for the Beijing. How do you think this will impact the region?
Of course, ASEAN has prided itself to having this convening power, right? So we are a group of...
We're very sexy, aren't we, for these strong powers, for them to just come all the way around the globe.
Exactly. So we are a group of only, sort of middle powers who probably are still very much less in terms of influence globally when compared to the great powers. But we do have these convening powers, and the big leaders trust us to attend ASEAN meetings in order to discuss more important global stuff as well throughout this series of meetings that ASEAN holds.
Right. So within the foundation, the South-South Foundations, Bella, you and your colleagues within the foundation must have figured out that there's going to be the presence of the President of Ramaphosa here in our country. What were the first thing that goes through your minds and also within the foundation to sort of predict and analyze the outcomes of today's meeting?
Okay. Maybe the first one is trade and investment, like we talked before.
Head of BKPM, our Indonesian investment agencies there. So most certainly that.
Surely that. And hopefully for us, it's besides education that we talked before too.
Right. Investment, education.
Education, investment, trade and investment, and also sustainable farming. Yeah, like create a system that we can survive in the middle of European Union deforestation-free regulation that I mentioned before, that developing countries affected on that policy. So yeah, I think we expecting that further we have like a tight collaboration in terms of agriculture, in terms of deforestation free in our country, so it more be like sustainable.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, if we look back to the campaign trails of President Prabowo Subianto, I mean, this is only his first year, but throughout his campaign trails, he's been mentioning that we need to have food security, energy security, water security, and at this point in time, if we look back to his initial address at the 80th UNGA, he's very proud of the first year food security achievement that he said. Do you think that in some way, because you mentioned that we need to learn something or rather exchange knowledge when it comes to sustainable farming, that this will be in line with his objectives to achieve a stronger food security for our country and have something taken from the South African experience?
Well, of course, it will be strengthen our food security as well, because when we have the technology for sustainable farming, it not just affect our environmental condition in Indonesia. It also creates, some new instrument that can strengthen the food security itself, like
technology sharing.
Technology sharing with South Africa also will be, potential.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so now let's go back to another report that we put together for the program today. South Africa is a country of the southernmost tip of the Africa and considered one of the biggest and most developed economies on the continent. While it is still a relatively minor trading partner for Indonesia, South Africa offers potentials with its rich natural resources and industrialized economic sectors. Let's take a look at this next report.
The Republic of South Africa is the southernmost country of the African continent, with 9 provinces bounded to the coastline that stretches along the South Atlantic and Indian Ocean. It is bordered to the north by the neighboring countries of Namibia, Botswana, and Zimbabwe. Meanwhile, to the east and northeast lies Mozambique and Eswatini, while also including Lesotho. Historically, South Africa is a very old land with various hominid.
And we will be giving you more of that country profile of South Africa and exploring all the nooks and crannies that we have pertaining to that particular attractive economy within the continent. But in the meantime, let's go over to the live visuals from the Merdeka Palace, where the President of South Africa, Ramaphosa, is now delivering an address. Let's listen in.
Global reforms. The BRICS Economic Partnership also provides a great potential to support development and transformation in our countries. And we encourage the deepening of Indonesia's participation in all BRICS structures, particularly in the BRICS Economic Partnership. This could also be a catalyst for the growth of bilateral economic relations between our two countries, which we look forward to. Today's meeting brings together key ministers from both our countries, including those ministers that deal with matters that have to do with trade and industry and defense and agriculture as well. From our side, this is a clear demonstration of our shared commitment to deepening cooperation between the two countries. This engagement takes place at a very important time in our bilateral relations. This year, South Africa is honored to hold the presidency of the G20, and we appreciate Indonesia's representation and contribution to the G20. We are especially pleased that Your Excellency will participate in the G20 Leaders Summit in Johannesburg later this coming month. And we must say that Indonesia's presence at the G20 is so key and important as it lifts the stature of the G20, particularly when countries like your country and South Africa, key countries in the global south, participate in such fora and begin to advocate for and the important role that is played by countries in the global south that stand for good trade relations, investments, and economic progress amongst them. So we would like to see that happening. And to this end, we want to encourage you to deploy, as you said in our bilateral, and our tete-a-tete, ministers who will come to South Africa to see what opportunities there are in South Africa. And similarly, our presence here should also lead to that. So we want to see a mutually beneficial relationship between the two countries, as we do have a lot in common, but more importantly, a lot in common that we should have to eliminate the challenges that our people are having, challenges such as lack of employment, challenges such as poverty and inequality. These are the challenges that we need to address. And we would like that as we address this, we do retain a keen participation of those people who've been excluded from the economy. And by participation, I mean a big way in which they can participate. So, President, we truly welcome this opportunity. It's welcomed, and we know that the relations between our two countries are warm, and we continue to want to see them getting warmer and warmer so that we can continue trading in a much more substantive way and expand the trade and investment between our two countries. So this is what we would like to see happening. And I thank you, therefore, and wish Indonesia the very best. And similarly, I know that you wish South Africa the very best in every way possible. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for your opening remarks. Your Excellency, we are committed to enhancing this relationship. Yes. And I will immediately send a delegation to South Africa. Ya, kita kirim satu tim mempelajari kesempatan-kesempatan.
Well, there you have it, a quick glimpse into the inaugural moments, the introductory remarks delivered by both presidents before the closed-door meeting started right there at the Merdeka Palace here in the capital, Jakarta, Indonesia. Let me go over to both my guests today. We've had the glimpse to how the meeting is going to unfold today between the two members of the entourage. Over to you first, Fifi. What do you make of the most from what President Ramaphosa has had to say? He mentioned it is a catalyst to our bilateral ties, a lot of different aspects, and key ministers who are present today. Share with us your thoughts on what he said at the opening there.
Sure. I think I paid more attention when he was mentioning both BRICS and G20.
Exactly.
How South Africa wishes for Indonesia to be more involved in BRICS. So they are happy that we have become full member of BRICS, and wishes for Indonesia to be a lot more involved, deeper in all the activities within BRICS. So I think there's South Africa really sees Indonesia's joining BRICS will actually bring benefit to the other BRICS member countries. And then also about G20, it's very interesting how he expressed his appreciation that Prabowo has confirmed about attending the summit next month in Johannesburg, and that he underlined that Indonesia's presence is key. That's the word he said. Indonesia's presence is key
and important at the summit.
Exactly.
That's a flattery in itself, a compliment.
Exactly. So I do think that what we talked about earlier, I mean, both Indonesia and South Africa are the members of G20, which are still within the developing countries category. So it really shows this solidarity into actually bringing the agenda of the developing countries into the agenda of G20.
Yeah. I mean, whether we like it or not, being in the stands of developing countries, the developing nations, we are sharing all of these feats and characteristics of being developing countries that we need to resolve together, and as you said, stronger when we are together in achieving all of these goals. And what do you personally have had to analyze from what the President Ramaphosa said at the opening there, Bella?
Yeah, I actually agree with Ibu Fifi that, but for me, the highlights was there's the presence of Ministry of Agriculture that we already discussed
Which
before.
echoed what we explained earlier, strengthening our cooperation with agriculture.
I think developing country, the issues about agriculture in developing country is maybe the foundation of poverty alleviation in the developing countries. So yeah, that's really interesting. That we hope that in the result both country agrees on something that related to agriculture and sustainability in the both nations. Yeah.
Right, but when it comes to poverty alleviations, it has to be synchronized with the fact that we need all of the funding supports, the technology support from a more developed economies, at least within the G20. Do you think that this is a commitment that all of these developing nations on the table will carry on forward in a sense of please help us with your support? Do you think that it will happen soon? Because from our experience, from our very own presidency, carry over to India, carry over to last year under President Lula's summit, he was very strong voiced on the fact that we need to work together and request from the help from these developed nations to achieve the goals of poverty alleviations and alleviate hunger in our countries. Your thoughts?
Yeah. So yeah, of course, absolutely. That's gonna be something that in the future, you know, like the bargaining power of the developing countries in the future is going to be more, you know, solid, or strengthen their solidarity. And to achieve the poverty alleviation, true, we need the funding from developed nation, but I think together if we grew together and like I said before, like share technology or something that can, you know, increase our competencies to, you know, achieve the poverty alleviation itself. Yeah.
All right. Mbak Fifi, one thing that also piqued my interest during the introductory remarks of President Ramaphosa was that he mentions the presence of key invited ministers at the table from each respective country. And one of them is the Minister of Defense. And that is something that we know our president has been pursuing, has been making his presence known across different opportunities globally. So what's the landscape of defense cooperation do you think that we can build, particularly through this particular meeting here, Indonesia and South Africa, in terms of military and maybe artillery or joint exercise or whatnot?
Well, in terms of defense relations, I think it's still very much limited between the two countries. Right. So I guess similar with you, I'm kind of curious, you know, what sort of conversation, because the other ministers, you have seen, you know, the track record of meetings between this on these sectors, you know, on trade,
in a way, it's a
agriculture. Exactly. So
you defense.
Exactly. So I don't have any insight on it, but it's going to be very interesting to see the result. You know, what sectors within defense that were actually discussed in the meeting.
That's right. It's the question is whether we are buying or are we selling to South Africa. We don't know yet. So we're going to have to wait and see for that, for the conclusion of the tete-a-tete meeting. Let's bring in again the report that was postponed earlier in the program. South Africa is a country on the southernmost tip of the Africa and considered one of the biggest and most developed economies on the continent. While it is still a relatively minor trading partner for Indonesia, South Africa offers potentials with its rich natural resources and industrialized economic sectors. Take a look at this next report.
The Republic of South Africa is the southernmost country of the African continent, with 9 provinces bounded to the coastline that stretches along the South Atlantic and Indian Ocean. It is bordered to the north by the neighboring countries of Namibia, Botswana, and Zimbabwe. Meanwhile, to the east and northeast lies Mozambique and Eswatini, while also including Lesotho. Historically, South Africa is a very old land, with various hominid species existed on this plain about 2.5 million years ago, while modern humans appeared over 100,000 years ago. In 1652, the Dutch established the first European settlement at Table Bay, Dutch Cape Colony, followed by a British occupation in 1795. The invasions led to the formation of various African kingdoms, including the Zulu Kingdom. While it is known as a multiracial country, South Africa had a dark history, where an apartheid system was imposed in 1948, institutionalizing a racial segregation. In the mid-1980s, anti-apartheid activists started a non-violent struggle to repeal the discriminatory laws. The struggle was fruitful, with universal elections taking place in 1994, followed with a full political representation of all racial groups and the country's liberal democracy. Since then, South Africa celebrated a variety of cultures, languages, and religions, with a growing influence at the international level and a recognition as a middle power. It becomes the member of BRICS Plus along with Brazil, Russia, India, and China, as well as the member of the G20, the Commonwealth of Nations, and the G20. South Africa's quality of life has been constantly improving for non-white citizens after the end of the apartheid. South Africa is an emerging market that is currently considered the largest economy in the African continent, one of only 8 such countries in Africa. The economy is the most industrialized, technologically advanced, and diversified in Africa, following the end of over 12 years of international sanctions due to the apartheid system. South Africa's nominal gross domestic product, or GDP, almost tripled to a peak of $416 billion in 2011. It has also been the key partner of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, or OECD, since 2007, alongside Brazil, China, India, and Indonesia. With the OECD, South Africa works to improve macroeconomic policy and structural reform, debt management, fiscal policy, public governance, anti-corruption, and tourism. While it was initially known for its rich natural resources and extraction industry, the economy of South Africa has started to diversify since the end of apartheid, particularly towards services. Its financial services industry has been flourishing along with the growth of market capitalization of the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. State-owned enterprises also play a significant role in the country's economy, with the number reaching 700 companies working in wide-ranging industries. It is now embarked in the growth of technology and IT development, combined with improved and skilled talents. Indonesia and South Africa have a growing economic relationship centered on increasing bilateral trade and investment, with a recent focus on the development of the micro, small, and medium enterprises. While bilateral trade has increased to $2.41 billion in 2022, Indonesia has faced a trade deficit with South Africa in recent years due to higher imports of South African goods such as motor vehicles and machinery. Under President Prabowo Subianto's administration, Indonesia is seeking to strengthen trade agreements with South Africa and remove barriers to expand Indonesian products to the African trade partner.
Indonesia and South Africa are exploring opportunities to expand cooperation in the trade sector. Several projects have been proposed across various fields, ranging from mineral downstreaming to agriculture.
The Deputy Chairman for Investment, Downstream Industry, Energy and Environment at the Indonesian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Kadin, Bobby Ghafur Omar said, the partnership between Indonesia and South Africa stands on a solid economic foundation. 2024, bilateral trade reached about $1.6 billion, with $784 million in Indonesian exports and $379 million in imports from South Africa. Although still modest, he noted the strong potential in diversified trade ranging from consumer goods to industrial commodities, providing a solid base for future investment and production. From the business community's view, Kadin Indonesia sees the forum as a platform for concrete partnership that unite the strength of entrepreneurs from both nations. Indonesia focuses on 5 key areas: downstream industries, energy transition, maritime logistics, agricultural processing, and food security, and the digital economy. Bobby added that these initiatives could lead to joint ventures, technology exchanges, and talent development between developing countries. Meanwhile, Kadin's Deputy Chairman for Trade and International Agreements, Pahala Mansuri, said the forum coincided with the South African President's visit to Indonesia and opened new opportunities in critical minerals, agriculture, and manufacturing. Indonesia, rich in nickel and cobalt, and South Africa, abundant in manganese, could collaborate on mineral downstreaming and food security. Pahala also noted potential cooperation through special economic zones with Indonesia's 19 SEZs and South Africa's plan to develop 11 production hubs. Entrepreneurs from sectors such as fertilizer, oil and gas, food, and electricity also joined the event, aiming to establish concrete trade agreements.
All right, you are still watching a special program here on TVR World, where we are covering the state visit of the President of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, here in the capital, Jakarta, currently in a closed-door meeting with the President of Indonesia, Prabowo Subianto. We are expecting in the next hour for the meeting to conclude and listen into the deliverables and the main outcomes of the meeting. In the meantime, let's go over to my guest again, Bella, and also Mbak Fifi. Bella, we've also witnessed that there is a commitment on behalf of Indonesia's Chamber of Commerce and Industry, our very own Kadin, to be involved in nurturing the trade relations between Indonesia and South Africa. And from what you and your colleagues within the foundations have figured out, what are the key aspects of our trade relations with South Africa that our Kadin can truly explore in the future, other than the very perspective agriculture then that we've seen?
Okay, maybe besides agriculture, it would be tourism. Tourism, right. Because like we mentioned before, Indonesia have the instrument of halal industry or halal tourism that maybe we can collaborate with South Africa in South Africa. So we are similar in the in the specialty of tourism. Like we both tropical country, and we both focus on nature tourism and maybe cultural tourism. But I believe both countries have their own specialty on the tourism. So that's why I think there's a lot of Indonesian people want to go to South Africa and South Africa.
Vice versa.
And vice versa. And yeah, I think maybe that's will grow to another aspect, like I say, halal tourism, or halal industry in food security, and also related in agriculture itself.
All right. So agriculture is still the main interest for it to develop, but we're gonna have to give it to the hands of our, like you said, the key ministers who have attended, who will literally just point out the key aspects of cooperations, which will be watered down to the details that all of these enterprises within the two countries can truly collaborate, as opposed to G2G, and then it becomes B2B, or rather business-to-business opportunities. Over to you, Fifi, because right now we are very glad, after years and years and years of negotiations, we have finally ironed out all the details, and we've agreed with our partners over in European Unions that have signed the Indonesia-European Union IAU CEPA a couple of weeks ago in Bali. And Indonesia being the largest palm oil producers in the world, and as we also seen in a couple of reports there, we are also exporting that very commodity to South Africa. And looking at these achievements with the European Union, do you think that this is something that we can also pursue with our South African counterparts, meaning that elevating our partnership into the economic, rather comprehensive economic partnership?
That is one strategy to go. And that is a strategy that Indonesia's cultivating with other countries as well. So I don't see a reason why we shouldn't go there. And I actually believe that initial conversations towards that have already occurred. So because, like I said, we have this mechanism of the JTC, the Joint Trade Consultation, which goes on quite regularly. So I wouldn't be surprised if earlier conversations towards that goal has already been happening. So indeed, and I think we've seen that from past experiences, that the signing of any kinds of agreements, be it a free trade or CEPA, is actually one way or one strategy into creating a stronger bilateral relations in terms of trade relations as well.
But more importantly, we have making steps towards establishing these conversations. Right, Fifi. Let's go over to another report here in the program. During a meeting in October, Minister of Trade of Indonesia, Budi Santoso, together with South Africa's Deputy Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition, Zuko Godlimpi, discussed several concrete steps to strengthen trade cooperation and develop micro, small and medium enterprises, or MSMEs.
during a meeting held in Gabera, South Africa on October the 10th, 2025. Indonesian Minister of Trade Budi Santoso and South Africa's Deputy Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition, Zuko Godlimpi, agreed to strengthen bilateral economic relations through a South-South strategic partnership. Both sides discussed concrete measures to enhance trade cooperation and promote the development of micro, small and medium enterprises. Budi emphasized South Africa is one of Indonesia's key trading partners in Africa. He expressed hope the strengthened collaboration would open wider market access for Indonesian products such as palm oil, rubber, motor vehicles, and industrial goods. The two countries also agreed to revitalize the Joint Trade Committee, established in 2005, as a platform to explore new trade agreements. Indonesia proposed holding the 4th GTC meeting soon to discuss strategic efforts in trade, investment, and industry. In addition, both nations explored the possibility of a gradual trade agreement framework. From January to August 2025, total trade between Indonesia and South Africa reached $1.42 billion, with Indonesia recording $690.6 million in exports and $732.1 million in imports. In 2024, total trade reached $2.41 billion, up 7.2% from the previous year. Indonesia's main exports included palm oil, bulldozers, passenger cars, copra, and natural rubber, while imports from South Africa consisted mainly of metal alloys, chromium and manganese ores, raw aluminium, and refined sugar.
And we have come to the final part of our special report here on TVR World. Let me just try and get the final words from our guest today to sort of cap off our conversation today, in a sense of we are each entitled to our own hopes and expectation to the relations between Indonesia and South Africa. For the end of our program, share with us your thoughts on this. First to you, Bella.
Yeah, maybe as a young generation and as
the Gen Z part of our nation.
As the Gen Z part that concern on global South issues, we certainly hope that in the future, the relation between Indonesia and South Africa is focusing first on, of course, economic, trade and investment that we already discussed, and then technology and innovation, that shared technology and developing the technology like industrialization 4.0, 5.0, and etc. And then, of course, human capital and education, like we mentioned before. And last but not least is health and agriculture. Right. So, yeah. We know that developing countries concerned on health as you know, the main issue that we always working on, and the agriculture, like sustainable farming and etc. Yeah. Right. That's we hope that can be the key points of this meeting. Yeah. Right.
And also to echo what you said earlier, that we need to open up and establish channels of communications, especially for your generations, with their own generations who share the same concerns for their countries, and establish these communications between the two countries for the young'uns, essentially, and see what their hopes are in terms of establishing these connections as well. And lastly, from you, Mbak Fifi, go ahead.
Yeah, I think we've heard from some of the remarks that President Ramaphosa has said, that it's very apparent that the two countries really regard each other with high importance. They call each other important partners. So the political will is very strong on that. And I think it really matters on the strategy both countries put together in order to move forward. So I think some of the strategy that can be done, I mean, first we need to really make as much benefit as possible from the similar platforms that we are in. So BRICS and G20 is of course some of them.
And the South-South cooperation, the SSC.
Yes, the South-South cooperation has been there for decades, and I think it's really something both countries can benefit from. It's apparent that South Africa wants to be more active in the ASEAN platforms, for example. example, so we can make some benefit from that as well. And then I think in terms of the economic relations, it's always better to focus more on the high value sectors instead of trying to, do as many sectors as possible. Yeah. So Bella has mentioned some of the issues that sectors that are important and high on the priority list. So focus on these high value sectors, and I think it can really sort of like reduce the gap that we have in terms of our closer cooperation together.
All right, very well said there. And not only the outcomes of today's meeting that we are truly going to be paying close attention to, but also later on the 25th of November, by the end of the G20 summit in Johannesburg, the things that our president will bring forward to the G20 table and the benefits for all the members and the observing countries, and more importantly, for the planet and worldwide benefits, as you would put it. And we have to leave it at that. And this is the end of our program. For the special report, allow me to extend my appreciation to you, the spokespersons of Indonesian South-South Foundation, Rosabella, Iza, and also right here next to me, Deputy Executive Director for Research of CSIS, Safia F. Muhibat. Thank you both very much for your minds and for your time here on TVR World.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And that concludes our special report here on TVR World, shining a light on the state visit of President of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, here in Merdeka Palace, Jakarta. All the outcomes of the meeting will be delivered to you through the next bulletins here on TVR World at 1:30 Jakarta time on Newswatch. In the meantime, I'm Rahmat Idris bidding you adieu. Thank you very much and bye-bye.